Hi, welcome to Remote Learning Lesson number 18, Estimating Decimal Division. The cue for today's lesson is, how can quotients of decimal numbers be estimated? And our objective for today's lesson is, I can estimate decimal quotients. Problem 1 has two examples that are going to be running, but first, before we do that, let's go ahead and start with the steps. Step 1, you're going to draw a division garage and place the dividend and divisor in the right spots. Step 2, estimate the divisor to its leading digit. Step 3, estimate the dividend to a compatible number of the divisor. And the compatible number is a number that is easy to divide mentally. Step 4, divide using DMSCB. Divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down, and up. And step 5, check your work with multiplication and adding any remainders. So let's do our example. The first example that we're going to cover is 39.1 divided by 17. That's 39 and 1/10 divided by 17. We're going to go ahead and draw our garage, but before we put any numbers in, we're going to actually round the divisor. So we're going to take that 17 and we're going to round it to the tens place. So 17 rounded to the tens place is 20. So because we have a 20, we're going to skip count by 20s. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180 off to the side. Now this is where that compatible number comes in. We're going to look for a number that's closest to the number 39. So I look at that number 39 and I see the number 40. That's the number that I'm going to be focused on. That's going to go into my dividend. 40 goes in, and then I noticed that in my problem, my original dividend had 3 digits. So I need my current dividend to have 3 digits also. So the number that I have to use is 0. So it's going to say 400. So 391 is rounded closest to 400. Now I have to place my decimal in the correct spot. In my original problem, my decimal comes after two whole numbers. So it's going to say 30 decimal 1. So in my dividend, it's going to say 40 decimal 0. So I put my decimal in the correct spot, I put my lines up on top, and then I go ahead and bring my decimal up. So it should say above, in the quotient, it should say line, line, decimal, line. Now I can go ahead and start to divide. 20 cannot go into 4, but it can go into 40 twice. And 2 times 20 is 40. When you subtract the 2, you get 0. And now it's time to bring down that 0 next to those other two zeros. 20 cannot go into 0, so it's going to be a 0 up and down, and subtract, and you get 0. So your final answer for this problem, this estimated answer, is 2.1, or 2 wholes. Now we're going to see the problem that looks very similar, except the decimal's in a different spot. So instead of saying 39.1, it's going to say 3.91. So we already know that we're going to have to make our garage, and we already know that 17 rounds to 20. Since we skip counted off to the side already, we're only going to need to just look at that. We know that 20 is going to go into that 40, so we're going to write that 40. We know it's a 3-digit number, so we're going to add our 0. But this time our decimal is going to go in a different spot. It goes 3.91, so it's whole number, decimal, whole number, whole number. So we're going to put our decimal right after that 4. And then we're going to go ahead and bring all that stuff up. So it should say line, decimal, line, line. 20 cannot go into 4, but it can go into 40. It goes into 40 twice. Put our 40 underneath our 40, subtract, and you get 0. Bring down that 0, and 20 can't go into those zeros, so 0 up, 0 down, subtract, and you get 0. So our answer is 20 hundredths. It looks different than the answer before because the answer before was 2 wholes, and this one is actually a decimal, 20 hundredths. Or it could actually be called 2 tenths if we crossed off that 0 at the end. Problem number 2, 63.6 divided by 73. Go ahead and start setting up that garage. You have the garage set up, and now you're going to look at the divisor 73. Go ahead and round that to the nearest tens place, and that will give you 70. So with 70, you're going to skip count by your 70s off to the side. Remember, skip count by your 7s, and then go ahead and add zeros to the end, and it'll look like this. 70, 140, 210, 280, 350, 420, 490, 560, and 630. Now that you have it, you're going to focus on 636. You want to find a number that's as close to 636 as you possibly can. When you look off to the side, 630 is the closest to 636, so you go ahead and you put that in your garage. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to put our decimal. If you notice in the original dividend, it says 63, then the decimal, then 6. So in our new dividend, we're going to make it say 63, then the decimal, then 0. So go ahead and do that, and then make sure you bring that decimal up. Let's start dividing. 70 cannot go into 6, 0 and move on. 70 cannot go into 63, 0 and move on. But 70 absolutely goes into 630, 9 times. 9 times 70 is 630, subtract, and you get 0. So your answer to this problem is 9/10. If you look off to the next, onto the right, it says 6.36 divided by 73. 6 and 36 hundredths divided by 73. Let's do the same thing, set up our garage. And we already know that 73 is going to round to 70. We don't need to skip count because we already have it skip counted off to the side. And we already know that the number is going to be 630. We are going to put 6.30 because in our original dividend, it says 6.36. So we're going to make the decimal be in the same exact spot. Go ahead and put your lines up on top. Make sure that you bring that decimal on up. So it should say line, decimal, line, line. Now we're going to go ahead and divide. 70 cannot go into 6. It cannot go into 63, but it goes into 630 9 times. And 9 times 70 is 630, subtract and you get 0. The answer to this problem, although similar to the first one, is different. It is 9 hundredths. The first one was 9 tenths, and this one is 9 hundredths. Let's move on to the next problem. Problem number 3. 11.72 divided by 42. Go ahead and set up your garage. When I look at my divisor, it says 42. So when I round 42, I actually round it to 40. So I'll put 40 as my divisor, and I'm going to skip count by 40s. Remember, you skip count by 4s from 4 all the way to 36, and then you add zeros to the end, like the left. 40, 80, 120, 160, 200, 240, 280, 320, and 360. So now I'm going to be looking at the first 3 digits. 117. And the reason why I'm looking at the first 3 digits and not the first 2 digits, if I looked at something that was close to 11, I wouldn't find a number very close to 11. So that's why I'm picking a number that's close to 117. When I look at 117, I notice that 120 is the closest number. So I'm going to write my 120. Now here's the thing, there's actually 4 digits in my dividend, and I only have 3. So I'm going to have to fill in a spot with a 0. When I fill in that spot with a 0, I'm going to place my decimal after the first 2 numbers. It's going to be a decimal and then the last 2 numbers. So it's going to look like this. So it should say 12.00. Just like in the original dividend, it said 11.72. Go ahead and bring that decimal up. And it should say line, line, decimal, line, line. And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to start to divide. 40 cannot go into 1, and it can't go into 12, but it absolutely goes into 120 3 times. 3 times 40 is 120. Subtract and you get 0. Bring down that 0. And 40 goes into 0, 0 times, 0 up, 0 down, subtract and you get 0. So your final estimated answer to this problem is 30 hundredths. Or you can say 3/10 if you cross off that last 0. Problem number 4. 3.24 divided by 82. Or 3 and 24 hundredths divided by 82. Go ahead and start by making your garage, and then go ahead and round your 82 to the nearest tens place. When you round 82 to the nearest tens place, you get 80. Next thing you need to do is you need to skip count by your 80s. Remember, you're skip counting by 8s from 8 all the way to 72, and then add zeros, like I did off to the left. After you do that, I want you to go ahead and you can look at the first 3 digits. And the reason why you should look at the first 3 digits is because every single number off to the left besides 1 actually has 3 digits. So if you're looking for a number that's close to 324, you're going to notice that there's 320. That's very close. So you're going to put that in your garage, and you're going to set it up just like you have the dividend already set up in the problem above, where it says 3.24, it should say 3.20. The lines have already been placed for you. Just don't forget to bring your decimal up into your answer. And start to divide. 80 goes into 3 0 times, 80 goes into 32 0 times, but 80 goes into 320 4 times. And 4 times 80 is 320. Subtract them and you get 0. Your final answer to this problem is 4 hundredths. Now it's your turn to complete your problem set and application problem independently. Please complete both and send me a picture. You can text me, email me, send me a Remind picture. You can send it to Google Classroom. Don't forget, you just need to send it to me to get credit for this lesson. Can't wait to see your work. Bye, boys.